Welcome to the Film Illiterates podcast, your home for uninformed, unfiltered, ill-advised movie talk. I'm your host, Joe Campbell, and with me, as always, are Nathan Stone.
Hello, everyone.
And Alex Patton.
Hello, hello.
Alex, I almost read your screen name.
It's actually kind of funny. So we're recording this on a Zencastr, which if you guys have not tried Zencastr, I suggest try the latest new podcasting remote software that you can find out there. But you have the chance of renaming it. And right now, Joe is me and Alex is Pepe.
Yes. Also, hashtag not sponsored because they're not paying us to sponsor it is really what it is.
Well, we're hoping that someone will pay us.
Oh my gosh, this podcast is coming off to a perfect start for the topic we're going to be talking about today, which is the best of 2020. Which is there any best of 2020? Anything?
I mean, that sounds like an oxymoron when you think about it.
Yeah.
So this isn't going to be a super complicated podcast or anything. We are going to be rolling down the top fives of 2020 for Nate and I, and Alex, who is our resident music buff. We'll be talking about the top 5 albums of 2020. Is that correct, Alex?
No.
Anime. He's doing anime this year.
Not only am I the music buff, but I'm the anime buff. The weeb.
He's the biggest weeb in this, yes.
Last year we did the albums. This year we're doing something you can actually watch. It kind of fits, the whole like film illiterate sort of thing. You watch movies, so you can watch anime with this.
After reading everyone's comments about, how they just did not like Alex's choice of music from our top 10 of last year.
Yeah, you guys don't have trash taste.
Yeah, exactly. So we decided to give him the easy way out and just have him do anime.
Yeah, now you can listen to my trash taste in anime as well. There you go.
It's better than my trash taste of movies, so...
Guys, we all know that I'm the ultimate king of trash taste of movies, so...
Yeah, you are.
Don't either of you try to take that away from me. And with that, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. So, as Philip DeFranco would say...
Philly D.
All right, so Alex, why don't we go ahead and start off with you? Since we're talking about you and your wonderful animes from that animated land.
Yeah, animated land, otherwise known as Japan. So,
Alex, what is your number 5 anime from 2020?
So my number 5 anime that aired in 2020 is actually kind of more of a split choice here. The series that I initially put in there, Inspector, is one I've watched entirely. But during 2020, I had also started season 2 of Fire Force. While I have not finished Fire Force, I felt weird putting it in the number 5 spot entirely just because I haven't seen all of it. I don't know how it ends. I can't imagine that it's going to end terribly and ruin my entire view of the series. But it just didn't feel perfectly right putting it in and knocking out Inspector. So going with a split choice here. But that being explained, I'll explain why I chose these two. So Inspector, we'll start with this one first. So here's the synopsis for Inspector. Hidden in plain sight, spirits known as yokai inhabit the world. While most are benign, a certain subset threatens the tenuous peace between yokai and humanity. Ever since she agreed to become their god of wisdom, Kotoko has served as a mediator between the two realms, resolving any supernatural problems that come her way. At a local hospital, Kotoko approaches Koro, a university student whose long-term relationship ended with an unfortunate breakup. Kotoko harbors feelings for him and suspects that something supernatural lurks within his harmless appearance, so she asks him for his assistance in helping out yokai. That's essentially the setup, and it's the first few episodes start with them meeting and slowly working together, and as much as I like it and it being on my list of the top 5, the first few episodes are really where it's at. For the majority of the series, it works as like a detective film or a detective series. It's all about mystery and figuring out the different problems that the yokai have, and the way the two characters play off each other is really great, and I think that's really the best part about the series. With Kuro kind of being more of like the muscle of the group, and then Kotoko being really just the brains and being able to talk to and speak with the yokai and kind of figure out kind of what needs to be done, and Kuro kind of being there in case something violent needs to be done, in which case he takes care of that. The last few episodes really kind of get drawn out, with the final fight scene, just where there's not a whole lot of emphasis on the action. And while during the rest of the series, that's fine. It's just during the rest of the series, the detective work and the mystery of it and the problem solving is interesting. It's just during the last few episodes that aspect of the series isn't played out very well, at least visually. It's overall it's a good series, but it's just not one I'm super stoked on. Um, and so that's kind of why I also put Fire Force season 2 in here. So far, like I said, from what I've seen of season 2 of Fire Force, it's honestly pretty great. The first season was good. I enjoyed it. It was interesting, but I think they've really kind of like upped the stakes in not only the story but also the fight scenes in season 2. I mean, we do have a little bit more different characters that are introduced and kind of given moments to fight. So overall it's a lot more visually interesting as we see different people break out their moves instead of just kind of Shinra being the only one that really does it. In season 1 we had only a little bit of showing between the evangelists kind of people and against Shinra and his group. This one we get a lot more. We get a bit more of it. The fight scenes between the two are great, and overall, so like I said, so far it's better. It's kind of like what season 1 was, but just more. One thing that I think that the series does incredibly well is the sound design. Like the sound design for the fights are amazing, coupled with like I said, the really great action that shows up a lot more often in this season compared to the previous one. I feel like also with this, it does push the plot a little bit faster. We get to see a little bit different locations. They actually even go to China in like one arc, which was really cool. Like I said, I think this is doing what season 1 did, but just bigger and better. So if you like season 1, you're gonna like season 2. It's just cooler, in my opinion. So like I said, the reason why I put it in as a split choice for number 5 is I'm anticipating, like I said, I haven't finished it, but I'm anticipating to like this one a lot more than Inspector.
So just curious, so like you mentioned, like both of these are kind of like sharing this number 5 spot. Do you think if Inspector kind of like took a little bit of what maybe Fire Force did and just like making their finale a little bit more climactic and just raising the stakes like Fire Force did, it probably would have been a little bit higher on your pick?
Quite possibly, yeah. If the last fight scene, I think I had explained it in a previous episode, but it's essentially just what was his name, Kuro, fighting the yokai, and then Kotoko just sitting in a car, like typing on online forums. That's essentially what the last like few episodes are, and it's very, as you can imagine, it's very boring to watch because they don't actually focus on the fight all that much, just kind of cutting to it a little bit here and there as maybe like the tides of the fight change. But if they had done it differently or completely thrown out the whole like Kotoko has to fight the yokai by trying to convince people online that the yokai doesn't exist, and if it had just been done differently, I think it would have been a lot better and could definitely I feel like rival Fire Force a lot more. But unfortunately, yeah, it's just the way it is. I don't know if we're gonna get a season 2 of this. I haven't heard anything. I kind of hope we do, just because, like I said, I do like the characters. They're very cool. I think there's cool chemistry between them. But with the way it is, yeah, I'm not super stoked on it. That is my number 5 pick. That's split between Inspector and Fire Force season 2. I obviously can kind of recommend Fire Force over Inspector, but both solid picks in my opinion.
All right, Nate, what you got?
All right. It's been hard trying to like slim this down to 5 picks because I did manage to see a good few movies this year. It's just got to figure out which ones are the best ones. I will actually say for number 5 for me this year was the one I actually think probably had the most balls, I think, for what it did. And that would be Chris Nolan's kind of time travel espionage action flick Tenant. This is this was a movie that this year has gone a lot of talk just because Nolan was really trying to push for this to be a theatrical release. Like he did not want Warner Brothers to go straight to streaming with this, and he managed to get his way. And this one had like the biggest stakes for it because it's like there was a bunch of money that they spent towards this, and with this year and how it went down, we didn't know if it was going to pull off, or people thought maybe he's trying to cover up, a bad movie with, just theatrical release. But honestly, I thought this was a very good movie. I was thoroughly enjoyed through it all the way. I thought the cast was really good. John David Washington, I remember seeing him in Black Klansman, but I don't know, he gives me faith that he can actually pull off this whole espionage spy action hero very well. And I think just even the concept of what they brought to it, it's very confusing. And I remember actually when I saw this in theaters, when I first came in theaters, and I made the wrong decision to actually go to the bathroom at the one time some crucial information came out. And I like how this movie was like, if you miss one thing, you have to kind of go back and see it again. And it's a movie that has rewatchable value to it. But I think it's just showing how Nolan keeps creating this, new ideas and new ingenuity of just doing things and doing it on a way that's like epic in scale, but he's not going for the whole CGI effect. Like a lot of the effects in this are practical effects, which are just phenomenal to watch. And I think that's just one of the reasons why I think for me, it was just a very, very enjoyable movie to watch.
Yeah, this is easily my least favorite Christopher Nolan movie.
Wow.
Yeah, you're talking to the wrong guy. I almost kind of hated this movie, so
Oh, wow, we
it's
got a
my
hater.
second least favorite movie from 2020.
Well,
Wow.
I still have love for Nolan, and I think for me, I'm glad that he still pushed for this the way he did. There's problems I see with it, but for me, they're kind of passable. I just wish it wasn't so much of a headache to watch sometimes. So that's my number 5.
Alrighty, there you go. My number 5 is Run, directed by Anish Chaganty, starring Sarah Paulson and newcomer Kiera Allen. A homeschooled teenager begins to suspect her mother is keeping a dark secret from her. So this is one actually I watched via the Nightstream Film Festival. It was the online film festival this year.
Oh, nice.
For genre and horror films. This was released on Hulu, and it's basically a modern day version of kind of a Hitchcockian thriller, where characters are keeping secrets from each other. There's a lot of really cool camera angles, the way it ratchets up tension, and there's almost kind of a I don't want to say Rear Window because there isn't any of that voyeurism of Rear Window, but it kind of has that same feeling where the main character is disabled and she's trying to find out what's really going on. I really don't want to spoil anything about this movie, so I'm not really going to talk about the plot at all. But Sarah Paulson is fantastic. Sarah Paulson is really good at playing kind of, I want to say, on edge characters. I'm even thinking of stuff like Glass, where it's like you don't really know where this character is coming from.
Well, probably actually more recently, she's in the new show Ratchet, where she plays, kind of like a young version of Miss Ratchet from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So yeah, kind of like on edge. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, Run is just very well put together. It's a very fun movie. It moves. I was invested in it, even though. I mean, I kind of called where it was going from the very first scene, and even knowing where it was going, I had a lot of fun seeing how it got there. It's very well shot. It looks, very kind of crisp and clean. They go for some interesting camera angles. It looks really nice. All of the actors are giving fantastic performances. The Kiera Allen, who I don't think she's ever actually been in anything before this. If so, it hasn't been very much. I wouldn't have guessed that she was kind of a newcomer, So yeah, I would highly recommend checking out Run, especially if you like Hitchcockian stories. I mean, it really does just kind of feel like let's take a Hitchcock movie and just set it in modern day with modern filmmaking techniques, and it wraps up until the ending. So high recommendation.
If it wasn't a horror movie, it sounds like something I would be interested in watching. But
It's not really a horror movie. It's
More of a thriller.
It's more like a thriller.
Well, last time we told Alex about this, we went and made him watch The Lighthouse, and
this is not the this is not the light.
well, I like The Lighthouse.
no,
though.
well then the probably the last time we did this is when we saw a possum, and we have many regrets with that movie.
I don't necessarily regret watching it, but
I regret everything about that movie.
I'm sad to say there are 0% seagull bashings in or terrifying spider human puppets in this movie, Alex.
Well, yeah, that sells. I'm not interested in anymore. Damn.
All right, Alex, what's your number 4?
So number 4 for my favorite anime series of the past year, is Gleipnir. So the story centers on Suichi Kageyai, high school student with an unusual secret. He has the ability to transform into a monster resembling a giant dog mascot costume with a zipper down his back and a cartoonishly large smile. After rescuing a strange girl, Claire Aoki, from a warehouse fire, they join each other to search for Claire's older sister, who was assumed to be responsible for the death of their parents, and also to search for the reason why Suichi has become a monster. So this is adapted off a pretty popular manga, one I have not read, but I've been aware of prior to the series releasing, and I'm pretty stoked on it, honestly. It's definitely weird, as the synopsis kind of sets it up to be, but it's fascinating. It keeps you guessing, keeps you questioning kind of throughout on who's really good in this series and who's actually a monster, regardless of Suichi actually transforming into a giant dog mascot with a massive revolver. But this one just doesn't really hold any punches and just throws it all at you, and just you're kind of just along for the ride. You're constantly guessing who's really good in what situation, who's playing who, and where are they going to go next episode. But it's just a head trip watching it, just because the way it sets it up, and you kind of understand how Suichi was turned into a monster. Aliens is the reason.
As always, the reason for everything.
Yeah, of course.
Why are the pyramids the way they are? Aliens. Why is there triangles everywhere? Aliens,
dude.
Why did Lost end the way it did? Aliens.
I haven't heard that reason.
That would have been the best reason, honestly, than what they gave us.
But Gleipnir is just a wild ride. It's a lot of fun to watch. You're constantly guessing what's going to happen next. As I said, the action is pretty solid. It's not flashy like Fire Force is. Fire Force has very flashy and visually entertaining action to watch, whereas Gleipnir's is a lot grittier. It's a lot harder hitting. Gleipnir, someone gets hit and they get hit hard, you feel it with them. The characters are cool too. Kind of going back to because not only are they're trying to figure out the two, Shuichi and Claire are figuring out, essentially trying to unravel two mysteries: the death of Claire's parents and the disappearance of her older sister, and kind of the whole reason why Shuichi is a monster, and essentially why you keep finding more and more monsters. He's not the only one, as you find out later on in the series. But yeah, overall, I think it's a really solid series. The action's cool. The story is interesting, and every time I would talk to a friend of mine that was watching it as well, we always just like, what the hell did we just what did we just see? What the hell's going to happen next? I'm excited for season 2. We don't have a release date yet. It could be a year from now. It could be a couple years from now. Who knows? But this is one I'm stoked on. And one I'll likely go back and read the manga as well. I might do that before season 2. Who knows if I want to actually spoil myself on the story. But yeah, I think it's a cool series. Unique.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to revisit your reasons for why you want to be a mascot, or why you like guys who train the mascots. We're not gonna shy away from this, man. We're gonna bring it up again.
No, this is. I said this is not the podcast where we can start a podcast if we want to go into that one, huh?
Movie therapy, no, anime therapy sessions with Alex.
God. No, never mind. I take that back.
We just started a whole movie fetish podcast.
I'd be down for that. There's a lot of them out there, Joe, and I know you'd be more than willing to be a participant in this.
Episode 1, Quentin Tarantino and feet.
Oh yeah. All right, Nate, what's your number 4?
Number 4 for me, Joe. I think maybe this is somewhere on your top 5 list, but it's going to be Leah Whannell's horror thriller adaptation of The Invisible Man. After staging his own suicide, a crazed scientist uses his powers to become invisible to stalk and terrorize his ex-girlfriend. And when the police refuse to believe her story, she decides to take matters into her own hands and fight back. So, Joe, I remember you had talked about this on the podcast early on in the year, just before we went into lockdown, how you really liked what Leah Whannell did with this concept. Like, it's been adapted several times, but this is like the first time he actually kind of tapped into something that's very relevant, but also utilized the camera and the technique of CGI and special effects to his full advantage. And I actually was kind of very much engaged throughout this whole movie just because of that. Like, not only do you feel with Elizabeth Moss, who I'm not a big fan of her work, but she made me feel terrified of, like, I have no idea if he's in the house, if he's not in the house, like, is he there? Is he not there? It kind of puts you in that state of paranoia that she is in. And I think just his way of adapting it just is pulled out very well. Now, this is the same guy who did the movie Upgrade, which, Joe, we've watched and we had a lot of fun watching that. And this movie kind of does the same thing. It just does it on a different level of just making it entertaining action to watch. And I don't know, I kind of like what he's done with this, and it made me more excited of, like, what does this guy have up his sleeve in the future?
Yeah, I will have more to say about it later on. Hint, hint.
Yeah, I didn't want to steal all of your thunder because I know you're going to dive into this a lot. So that was just my number 4 take and my reasons for liking it. And yeah, I live alone, so I kind of sometimes wonder, is someone watching or listening into me? Just little noises like that I kind of pick up at. So, Elizabeth Moss pulled that off very well, but I also think Leah Whannell did a very good job with just adapting this the way he did.
Yeah, there's always someone watching. Just remember that.
Big Brother, he is a thing,
My number 4 is Skylines. Fuck yeah.
Okay.
Or should I say Skyline 3S.
3S?
They put a 3 for the E in the title, Skylines. It's amazing.
I guess so. Why is this your number 4?
Because it's amazing. All right, so Skylines came out in 2020, directed by Liam O'Donnell, who also directed Beyond Skyline. When a virus threatens to turn the now Earth-dwelling friendly alien hybrids against humans, Captain Rose Corley must lead a team of elite mercenaries on a mission to the alien world in order to save what's left of humanity. So, for those who don't know, Skyline was a movie that came out in, I think, 2010, directed by the Strauss brothers, who I believe did Alien vs. Predator Requiem, which I've heard isn't that good.
But you'd probably like it, I assume.
I might. Skyline, though, is a pretty bad independent science fiction movie about an alien invasion. Very bland. It's the whole movie is very constricted in that it's about these just kind of like rich kids in a I think it's like a penthouse during an alien invasion. It's visually not very interesting. Just the whole movie is kind of constrained and constricted and has not well written. It's just a bad movie. All right. Then Liam O'Donnell comes along. He worked on the first movie to some degree, made Beyond Skyline, which just takes that whole alien invasion concept and goes batshit crazy with it, and does all sorts of crazy, insane things. Like, he brings in Iko Uwais from the Raid movies, and he has him have martial arts fight scenes against aliens. He brings in Frank Grillo as the main character, as this guy trying to save his. I think he's trying to save his son. One of the main characters is a human, is a character from the first movie who had their brain put into an alien biological mecha suit body.
Oh boy.
Beyond Skyline is legit bonkers fun. It knows what it is. It goes for that kind of action-packed B-movie kind of style. It looks really good. I mean, it's shot really well. The effects are really good, especially considering the budget. They use a lot of suits and practical effects, that kind of stuff, which is great. So you bet your ass I was excited for Skylines when I heard that they were making a third one.
I guess so. I mean, I'm surprised they actually had enough money to raise for a third movie for this, but there's an audience for this.
Hey, people like the second movie. I mean, Beyond Skyline and Skylines are legitimate fun movies. I'm not saying they're like so bad it's good movies. Like they know exactly what kind of action packed, fun, nutso sci-fi market they want, and they corner that market. So I mean, these are legitimately very well made movies with a lot of heart put into them. So this isn't a Joe being ironic kind of thing. It is no. I actually check them out. They're a lot of fun.
All right. Honestly, I feel like this is something like get your friends, get a couple of beers, and just watch something that's bonkers enough to be like, let's see how much we laugh at this, or just have a good time with this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like this is the sort of movie where you have a group of people getting together, a bunch of military types, and they have like that's the one that's really good with computers. That's the one that's really good with guns. Hey, we've got an alien on the team, and he drops F-bombs and subtitles every other word, like that. Kind
of okay. Well, now that you said there's an alien that drops F-bombs, I'm kind of intrigued now to watch this. It's like taking Rogue One to the next level. It's not a robot that's just has sass. It's an alien that has sass and cusses. So
exactly. Again, it knows exactly what it is, and it just runs with it.
I mean, all right. I can't say that I'm surprised by the pick.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. Just leave it. Yeah.
It's a great fucking time. I'm telling you. If you can watch this movie with a group that likes this kind of stuff, especially that likes science fiction, action, B movies, that kind of stuff, I say absolutely, absolutely check it out.
So, Alex, you're going to watch this with your next friend's movie night, right?
No.
Well, we tried, Joe. We tried.
Because that means I would have, because we would have to watch Skyline and then Beyond Skyline in order to understand Skylines with the 3.
Just skip the first movie.
Just start with the second one.
I'd rather just skip the series in general. So I think I'm going to do that instead.
You're killing me, Alex. You're killing me. All right, Alex, what's your number 3?
All right. So to go from that to now my number 3 pick, which is Somali and the Forest Spirit. The world is ruled by a diversity of inhuman beings who persecuted humans and drove them to near extinction. One day, the forest guardian Gollum meets a human girl. This is a chronicle of a journey that would bind a member of the dying human clan to the forest guardian as father and daughter. So completely different vibe than Skylines.
A little bit.
Maybe just a tad. But this was a really good one. It's just kind of like a beautiful story, honestly. It's also quite sad because as a couple episodes in or so, you realize that the Forest Guardians, the Golems, they have a lifespan. And as you soon realize, the one in this story, his is ending soon. And with the humans being, pretty much near extinction, there's almost none of them left. So it's a story about the Forest Guardian trying to find humans so the girl Somali can have family. Like I said, the landscapes are really incredible. It's obviously kind of like it's obviously a fantasy land. So every forest they go to, the desert, the mountains, all this different stuff is it's gorgeous. It's not super flashy, but it's just very pretty to look at. It's not something that's like terribly far removed from reality. It's it's still something that you could likely imagine and see, but it throws little things here and there that obviously set it apart from real life, not including obviously the different, not really, I don't want to call them monsters because that's not really what it is, but just different beings in the world. And I think that's kind of one of the strengths that the series has as they're going on a journey. They're obviously the two main characters are obviously meeting tons of different new people and different, I guess, species, we'll call them. So the cast of characters that it brings in is always interesting. And none of them really feel like they're just, super two-dimensional background characters that are thrown in just to kind of move the plot along. And everyone they run into is interesting. either way, it's all really well crafted, and I think that's really kind of what drives the whole series. Also, the fact that with humans being kind of hunted, it's that suspense aspect of trying to keep her safe from others that would want to kill her or eat her. Yeah, it's a great story. It's also honestly a really sad story. It's
Oh no, she doesn't die, does she?
I'm not going to give away the ending. You're gonna have to watch it yourself to find out. But it's the end. Like I put off watching the end, the finale, just because I was like, I am not emotionally ready for this yet. I want to find the right time, like sit down, fully appreciate it. I was like, I just don't feel ready quite yet for this one. And yeah, it's it still got to me. But yeah, like I said, I really like this one. It was beautiful, just kind of like through and through, honestly.
So it's definitely not for the weak or the meek of heart, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not like it's like violent or anything like that. It's
Oh no, what I meant more is like if you have a soft spot in your heart, this is gonna wreck you.
possibly, yeah. I mean, if you do, I would still out, of course, recommend it to just about everyone. But yeah, it tugs on your heartstrings a good bit, especially the last episode. Yeah, get ready for
Exactly.
that one.
Go for that.
That's why I watch Gurren Lagann.
For the feels.
Exactly, for the feels.
Yep. I mean, Gurren Lagann has some feels. You know.
No, it does. And when they happen, they hit you. So
Yeah.
I like how we all agree on that. Like Gurren Lagann is just a good anime over around.
Gurren Lagann has some feels.
Mm-hmm.
I need to pick that back up. It was a great show.
All right. Should I go on to my number 3?
Do it.
Okay. So kind of like you, Alex, I was really debating on if I wanted this to be a splitter because there's 2 movies that could have shared this spot, but after thinking about it, I decided to just slim it down to 1. And so for my number 3, I decided to go with Jim Cummings' second film that is kind of like a dark comedy, horror, thriller, redefining of the genre, and that is The Wolf of Snow Hollow. Terror grips a small mountain town as bodies are discovered after each full moon. And losing sleep, raising a teenage daughter, and caring for his alien father, Officer Marshall struggles to remain sane and to himself and remind that there is no such things as werewolves. This is an interesting movie. The best way I could describe it is if someone decided to take the writings of Gravity Falls and adapt it to a live action horror werewolf genre. And it works for me. Jim Cummings did a first film called A Thunder Road, where he kind of plays a similar role as kind of quirky, socially awkward Marshall who has a bit of a drinking problem he's trying to recover from. In this, he's kind of the same kind of character, but I think in this, he hones in on his craft a little bit better as a writer, director, and producer. And it definitely shows. He's dealing obviously with a bigger cast, bigger budget, and just better surroundings. But I really like what this movie did with the werewolf genre. Kind of like it just plays with you like no one believes in werewolves. Some people believe in werewolves. This guy is trying to remain stable without losing his head. But when Jim Cummings like loses his shit, it's kind of funny to watch. And he's just like almost like a tea kettle just about to like explode. And it's kind of funny to watch in it. At the same time, there's a lot of cool stuff that they employ with like the camera to make like there's this voyeurism that happens a bit. And you kind of have a feeling like, oh, the camera's now the character, whoever's doing these killings, watching or zooming in on who's doing what. And I don't know, I kind of enjoyed this movie. And the other movie that would have shared the spot with it would have been Blow the Man Down, the kind of the dark thriller about these 2 girls in a fishing town who kill a fisherman and are trying to hide his body after they find he had a bunch of money. That would have shared the spot, but I think why Wolf of Snow Hollow takes full cake on this is because it has a better execution for its third act. That was the one thing for Blow the Man Down that it just failed to do for me is it didn't have a strong enough third act to pull me through. This one did, and I feel like this one delivers at the very end. It might be for some like not a satisfying ending. I felt it was pretty satisfying just because it leaves with some resolution, but shows that the characters still have some work that they need to do. And yeah, so if you guys haven't watched this, I'd highly recommend it. It's, I believe, on Netflix or Prime, one of those. I don't know. but I think you can rent it anywhere. I highly recommend it. Give it a watch and give it a go.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but just based on your description, it's certainly jumped up on my watch list.
Yeah, I definitely say probably sometime for either. Actually, this can work for either like a Halloween or a Christmas movie because they both take place around the same time.
Is it spoilers to ask if it's really werewolves or not?
Honestly, I thought for a longest time in it, just because of how the practicals were done, it looked like a real werewolf. So I was convinced. I'm like, wow, if this is not a real werewolf, paint me red and call me Popper. I don't know.
All right.
I don't know if that's an expression, but I'm making it one.
We'll run with it.
All right, my number 3 is Train to Busan presents Peninsula.
Wait, they made a second one?
Hell yeah, and it came out last year.
Okay.
Directed by Yon Sang-ho, a zombie virus has in the last 4 years spread to all South Korea. 4 Koreans in Hong Kong sail through the blockade into Korea for $20 million on a truck. So, Train to Busan it might be my favorite zombie movie of all time.
I think for a lot of people as well who are really into the zombie genre.
It really is. It's a fantastic genre movie with the zombie action. The way it shows the zombies, the way they move is really creepy, really, I don't want to say necessarily creative, but the way it's executed is creative, and the way they make the move is very cool. But Train to Busan also had this really heavy emotional heart to it. Each character in Train to Busan had their own identity, and you cared about everyone. They were very real human characters. They weren't all nice people. They were all just kind of regular people trying to get by. And then you do have some really despicable people thrown in there. And you do have good, kind-hearted people, and you never know who's going to die. And it's just fantastically well put together. So I absolutely love Train to Busan. So I was really excited for Peninsula, which I heard with the same director. This one doesn't quite have the heart of Train to Busan. I mean, the characters are still fine, but that's not really why you watch this one. This one's kind of a crazier, I almost want to say Walking Dead meets Escape from New York meets Mad Max kind of movie.
Hey, why not put all of them in there?
Yeah, exactly. It's so Train to Busan happens with the start of this zombie apocalypse. Peninsula is 4 years into the zombie apocalypse, where basically the rest of the world has gotten their shit together, but South Korea is just blocked off as just this post-apocalyptic wasteland. Just Korea as a whole is just blocked off, and no one's allowed to go in and out, but people keep sneaking in anyway. And so these people, it's about a group of people that go into Korea to get a bunch of money that they know is just left on a truck that was just left there when the apocalypse happened. And they go in there and they have to deal with the zombies. They meet people who are still living there and have had to adapt to living there for the past 4 years. You have the whole thing where there's like a warlord has taken over and has his own community of crazy people that ride around on motorcycles because they thrive in this zombie wasteland. They have they capture people and have them do death battles with zombies in an arena, like that kind of crazy stuff.
All right.
It sounds like they have a lot more fun with the genre now with this. Like more than so with Train Busan. It's like they're just going all out with building this universe and this world.
Yeah, exactly. They meet a I think I forget if it's a sister duo or if it's a mother and daughter, but there's this little girl there, and she straps lights, and noisemakers to remote control cars to distract zombies and drives them through, crowds of zombies, that kind of stuff. There's huge car chases with all sorts of crazy stunts. It doesn't have kind of the weight and the heart of Train to Busan, but it doubles down on just kind of the madcap fun. And towards the end, there was a really good kind of life-affirming moment where I thought they were going to go in a real kind of dark direction, and then they kind of turned that on its head and went in a different direction. And I really appreciated that because I like movies that try to be hopeful and try to say things aren't always just grim and dark. We can have fun and lightness too with it, and this movie has some of that to it too. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed Train to Busan Peninsula, and I would recommend it. Don't go in expecting the first Train to Busan. It's a very different movie, but it's still a very fun time.
Yeah, kind of like with Aliens. It's not going to be like the first Alien movie, but it's still going to be a load of fun.
Exactly.
All right,
Alex, number 2.
All right, so
take your
for my number 2
podcast.
What?
Take your number 2 on the podcast.
Okay. Anyway, for my for my number 2 pick for my favorite anime from the past year is Keep Your Hands Off Isaacan. Midori Asakusa wants to create an anime, but she is too afraid to make that first step by herself. By pure chance, she meets Tsubame Mizusaki, an up-and-coming socialite secretly dreaming of becoming an animator. Together with Midori's money-loving best friend, Sayaka Kanamori, the energetic trio start the Isaacan Club and slowly work towards making their greatest world a reality. This is one that caught me really off guard, and I was not expecting it to be as good as it was. The animation is, I think, one of the highlights of the series. It's not. It almost feels like it's a little rough. I know I've criticized other anime for that kind of feeling, such as like Tower of God, but this one feels rough specifically for a reason. It just works really well with, I think, the whole story as they're trying to make an anime, and so it gives it a little bit more of that almost like still in production kind of feel to it.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask, does this have the same kind of effect that Trigger did with Fooly Cooly? How it kind of like just breaks animation walls all the time. How it'll go back from one style to another style.
Sort of, yeah, and it does that actually. Maybe not entirely the same way as Fully Cooley, but um, a lot of the sequences that I love are Midori talking through her illustrations for the anime that they're making, and it goes into a very well, like roughly drawn sort of style as you see essentially the world that she's creating pretty much as she's drawing it. It does that quite often in the series, and those sequences are always fantastic. Yeah, it's so visually interesting to watch, and I've been kind of using that term a lot in describing these, but I'd say out of all of the series so far, this one is the most entertaining. It's a comedy series, first and foremost, a bit of slice of life as you can probably imagine as well. But the characters are also really cool. The main three are all memorable and each carry their own qualities that work really well within the group. And kind of losing my words and trying to describe it, but it's honestly just a very fun, very entertaining series to watch. I think it's probably, it barely lost to my number one pick, honestly. But I think if you're wanting to watch anime, you're wanting to get into anime, I think this is a really good one that you could start with. Tense, really. I think there's only a couple points where, as they're working on their own anime series, crunch time hits and they're figuring out what to do. But overall, it's very lighthearted, very easy to watch. It's not something where you have to just sit down and binge the entire thing. You can just pop in an episode here, pop on an episode at another time. The different locations that they go to are all entertaining and all have their own unique look and feel to them. And it's just a cool anime. Like, it's just super cool. Story's cool. The animation itself is, I think the feature that really sets it apart from other series, and all that combined, you have honestly a great series to watch to get into anime in the first place. This could be your entry point. So yeah, I highly recommend this one. Like I said, it only barely lost to my number one spot.
I haven't kept up on recent animes, but so far of the ones you've listed, this sounds like the one I'd be most interested to actually check out for myself.
For me as well too. I mean, like I mentioned Fooly Cooly, and what I think I like about Fooly Cooly is how the creators of that just decided to kind of like break a lot of the fourth walls, a lot of what was conventional, and just throw whatever they want at the wall. I'm not sure if this does the same thing, but if it does, I might be into that. I like it when animes are very self-aware of what they are and are able to not so much make fun, but just still like, we know we do this and we're still running with it and we're having fun with it. So I'm down for that.
Yeah, this one's got its own like unique voice that I think sets it apart from a lot of other series, but it doesn't fall super hard into like the typical like anime tropes. And going saying that it's a good starter anime, it doesn't just throw you in there, and it's easier for, more of like a Western audience to understand and follow along with and enjoy.
Nate, you number two?
Oh, number two. My number two isn't really much of a number two. It's actually one of the best movies I've actually seen in a long while from Pixar, and that would have to be their more recent one, Soul. Joe is a middle school band teacher whose life hasn't gone quite the way he expected. His true passion is jazz, and he's good. But when he dies and travels to another realm to help someone find their passion, he soon discovers what it really means to have soul. So this is, this is created and written by one of the founding heads of Pixar, Pete Docter, and he's done a lot of films from Pixar that I really like, Monsters Inc., Up, and Inside Out. So I really kind of had high expectations going in with this one, and he delivers again. I think honestly, I had my setbacks because the animation with Pixar just continuously looks more and more realistic, which I kind of felt like we're going to hit, the uncanny valley at some point with this, but it works in this. And I don't know if it's because when they go into the great before, the place where Joe, played by Jamie Foxx very well, goes to basically, bargain with, having to go to the afterlife and getting back to Earth. Just kind of like return back to their good old Pixar animation where it's like, it's very, just oblong and abstract shapes. Like they really play with the whole Soul Guardians, the Jerrys, as I said, using kind of like the obtuse cubism kind of Picasso style, which I thought was really, really creative. But even so, I kind of like how it still kind of manages to put in some fun Pixar moments. They play with the concept of, when you're a soul and you're trying to get back into your body, and just the wonderful witty banter that Jamie and Tina Fey's character kind of have with each other. And the animation's kind of up to par. Like there's some really great moments in there that I was not expecting. And so it's not, I kind of would almost argue this isn't a family movie. Like a lot of people kind of keep associating Pixar as like, oh, it's for kids and all audiences. I think this actually goes to the next level of, no, this kind of feels like it's an adult family movie. Like this is something like adults would get more, and it's designed more for them to understand. But not saying like kids won't get a good time at it. I think there's some stuff in there that kids love, but I don't know. I got a lot out of this movie, and I don't know. Have any of you guys checked it out this year?
Yeah, I saw it. I liked it. I quite liked it. I had some problems with it, but overall I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think the only problem, and I mean, I don't know if this is a spoiler. I guess everyone might have seen it at this point. Is when the two characters are able to come back to Earth and the whole switcheroo that they did. I almost kind of cringed a little bit at it because I think it was a little bit of a cop out, but I saw there was a reason behind that. And I don't think it was giving away anyone's performances for that. And it was the one qualm I had. And even the ending, I kind of had a bit of a qualm with.
Yeah, yeah. The ending is what I had issues with, which I won't get into here because I don't want to get into spoilers. But yeah. I didn't hate the ending, but there was a door open for another direction that I wish they had taken, which they didn't. I mean, without getting into details, the cat, I did not have a problem with it. I actually quite enjoyed that, but I know it's kind of controversial.
Oh, no, no. I mean, I think that was fun. And actually, I had to kind of like sit back and think, like, well, let me see, like, it's still fun and it still gets a lot across. And so is it really just my problem with it? Or, is this a big flaw with the movie? And I kind of realized it was just what I was kind of hoping would happen a little bit more. But I see what it did, and it was good at what it did. And I kind of agree with you, Joe. I think the ending, it could have gone in a grand new direction, which I thought Pixar might have been ready for. And it still kind of anchored itself back to, oh, no, we're still a family movie. We still got to keep it happy ending. So I kind of agree with you. And maybe that's the reason why it was like my number two. It would have been my number one. This would have actually been my first Pixar movie. That would have been my number one. So yeah, but it's two, and I still think it's good.
My number two is Fat Man.
I was kind of wondering when that was coming on. So
Directed by the Nelms brothers, I guess, Esham Nelms and Ian Nelms. Starring Mel Gibson as Santa Claus. A rowdy, unorthodox Santa Claus is fighting to save his declining business. Meanwhile, Billy, a neglected and precocious 12-year-old, hires a hitman to kill Santa after receiving a lump of coal in his stocking. The hitman is played by Walton Goggins, who played the most Walton Goggins' role of all time, and he's fantastic.
I love how he's just completely like, I'm owning this hitman role to the T.
Now, have you seen this one, Nate?
I did actually. I rented and saw it with my folks just after when you had recommended it. And I don't know, I kind of saw what it was doing. I was laughing at it. I actually just like how my folks were like, "Why did you make us watch this?" I'm like, but because it's Gibbs from Lethal Weapon. If he was fat and he was a fictional, like, Santa Claus character, this is great. Don't you think this is great?
Yeah, yeah. This movie is 100% my jam. I saw the trailer. I think like only like a month or two before the movie came out, and I knew like I had to see this movie. This it doesn't go over the top. It is ridiculous, but it plays everything very straight, which I enjoy. I typically don't like movies that are based on kind of a joke premise, and then everyone's just kind of hamming it up. This movie is it's so ridiculous. The whole idea of Santa Claus as this world weary guy who's lost faith in humanity, and you don't really see very many magical elements in the movie. There is magic in it, and Santa Claus is magical, but they kind of skirt around the more fantastical elements to keep it more grounded, which I appreciated. I was actually a little bit worried that they're going to go too grounded because I mean, for instance, you don't see him fly out on his yearly trip around the world. You just see him going out to the sled, and you see him coming back the next day. And I was kind of worried that like, oh no, did they not have money for anything? But then you do see the elves, and then you see the workshop, and you find out more about what his abilities are as Santa Claus. And so I really felt that the movie kind of nailed that balance between being very tongue in cheek and knowing exactly what kind of movie it was. There is a lot of humor to be found in this movie without them just straight up telling jokes. The humor is to be found in the concept and the fact that Mel Gibson is taking this role so seriously. The fact that Walton Goggins plays a hitman who needs to have a hamster with him.
I actually thought that was one of the funniest things. Like, he goes to the pet store and he's trying to get stuff for his hamster cage. And the pet lady's like, "Oh, maybe you're more of a snake guy." He's like, "Do I look like a snake guy? Give him my freaking hamster ball."
That's one reason I love Walton Goggins in this, and it's just everybody in this movie. Walton Goggins, his character has all these little quirks to him that don't ever really go fully explained. They get kind of half explained. Like it doesn't add dimensions to the character, but it adds character to the character, and it makes him a little bit more interesting and fun to watch than just if he had just been straight up stock hitman. You get that there's something a little bit more to him beneath the surface that we're not quite fully seeing. But we don't need to. We get enough of this guy that we know exactly, just kind of like, all right, he's just a guy and he's doing this job.
Yeah. And I also, Joe, I will say when I kind of saw this, I was actually hoping it'd be hammed up a little bit more, that they throw a little bit more jokes here and there, just related more to the Santa Claus lore. But I actually like how a lot more of the jokes are embedded in there. And unless like you've seen a lot of like Lethal Weapon, a lot of like action 80s, like, heist Die Hard movies, you wouldn't get the jokes, but they're there. And I think that's what makes it a little bit more entertaining on that level.
Yeah, I mean, one of my only complaints was that it's a little bit so in doing this kind of more grounded take on Santa Claus, they make some changes which make sense in the for this direction. I mean, for instance, Santa Claus doesn't live in the North Pole, but he lives in some little town up in Alaska.
Yeah, North Peak.
But then things get a little bit more muddled when they start bringing in the U.S. military, and they start explicitly saying that, oh no, I guess the other countries or the U.S. specifically are funding him or giving him money to make the toys, and then it gets a little bit more muddled and you start digging into like, well, okay, what are the politics of this world? But that's all, for me at least, pretty easy to just kind of wave away because the movie doesn't really focus on that a whole lot. It's just kind of like, okay, that he's tied up for cash and he has to make a deal with the U.S. military. There you go. Let's move on,
Exactly. Yeah. They don't dwell too much on it. And I think it's just enough to kind of like, let's just focus on what we need to get the story going. And yeah, the rest people will just accept.
Yeah. So I thoroughly enjoyed this one. This is one that will probably end up becoming a holiday regular for me.
So along with Rare Exports and Krampus,
I'll probably end up watching this more often than Rare Exports. I rewatched Rare Exports this year also, and it's great. I love Rare Exports. I'll probably end up watching Fat Man more often, though. Anyway, so yeah, Fat Man is my number 2. A lot of fun. Check it out. And now, Alex, now we're down to our number ones. What is your number 1 anime of 2020?
My number 1 anime of the past year is Sing Yesterday for me. Rikuo Izumi has all but resigned himself to a bleak future, endlessly working at a convenience store in Tokyo after graduating from college. But his monotonous life is interrupted by the peculiar and lively Haru Nonaka. Nonaka, my bad. Again, I can't pronounce these things, man.
You know, for you being such an avid anime watcher, I'm surprised remember the names have been
I was
a
going
little
to say the
easier.
same thing.
I have it written down, so I cannot remember the names. Like, that is one thing I actually have not been able to do, is like remember their exact names. I just remember faces. So anyway, his monotonous life is interrupted by the peculiar and lively Haru Nonaka. As she continues to drop by his work and befriend him, Riko learns his old college crush, Shinaku Morinome, has moved back into town. The story slowly unfolds around the love triangle of these 3 characters, and a 4th that comes in. So pretty much early on in starting to watch this, I realized it was going to be one of my favorites, not only of the year, but just in general, honestly. It's not a very big anime compared to a lot of the other ones, like Fire Force, like Glypnir, like even Keep Your Hands Off Isaacan. It's not a big series. It doesn't completely go out there and, you know, show you something crazy and fantastical or something you haven't seen before. No, it's just a very calm, quiet drama and romance series. It's just a slice of life. And I feel like slice of life really fits the series well. That's generally what I'm drawn to more, and kind of like what really got me into watching anime in the first place. The characters are memorable. They're just very much down to earth, and the dialogue is very down to earth, and it's comfortable, and it's not like there aren't any sort of like interesting turns it takes or anything like that. The ending itself is I did not expect to see coming. It was definitely kind of threw me off at the very end of it. Yeah, all of that really combined really made this one of my favorite series, not just of 2020, but in general, really. The animation was just it was pretty. It was there. It wasn't trying to be the main focus of the series. And I think that lends itself really well to the rest of the story. It's all just entirely dialogue driven. The characters are walking home from work or walking here or there, and like I said, there's no crazy plot twist. It's just smaller, more real life, you know, kind of turns that it takes. And the case happens with a lot of slice of life series is they can kind of feel immature. Almost all of the characters are at least in high school, if not, you know, graduated college. And so it lends itself to be a bit more of a mature series in the kind of like not only the obviously characters age, but just the themes it takes on, because it's all about kind of just dealing with your past memories and experiences and pushing on towards tomorrow, to the next day, to whatever's coming up for you or whatever you can make of tomorrow. It's a really solid series. It's, you know, may not be something that everyone really likes, as it's not, let's say it's not entertaining, even though I found it to be very entertaining, but it doesn't like hook you in. Very subtly and slowly kind of gets you invested in these characters, gets you invested in their story and their background and why they're doing these different things or why they want that, you know. So yeah, like I said, it's one of my favorite series. There's no like one thing that stands out. I'd say maybe aside from the, you know, the characters themselves, but there's no one thing that stands out and is like this is, you know, the cool thing about the series. It's just everything works together to create, you know, what I think is one of the best what I think is the best series of last year.
Wow, that's pretty deep, man. I don't know how I'm going to top that one off. I feel like I'm going to kind of like completely derail the mood that we've just set because guess what my number 1 movie of this past year was?
Skylines.
You wish, Joe, wouldn't you? No, actually, it was the movie that we saw just before everything went into lockdown. And for some reason, I have no idea why this movie is my number one movie of 2020, but that is The Hunt.
Oh,
Wow.
huh.
I did not see that coming.
Yeah, I'm surprised too. I mean, Joe, I think when you shared this with us, I had my doubts. I had my low expectations, and maybe that's the reason why I enjoyed this a lot more. But I don't know. I'm gonna do a weird comparison. This was to me what Blazing Saddles was to Western lovers in the 70s. This movie holds back no punches with making fun of both sides. It's making fun of the right. It's making fun of the left. It's making fun of the politics behind each one and just how ridiculous people assume everything to be the worst. But at the same time, there's also real stakes. There's people who are dying for no reason whatsoever other than just they don't like them. And just how Betty Gilpin just plays this straight woman who is like, I'm going to survive this at whatever cost. If you're in my way, your head's coming off. I kind of just like that. She made it really fun. I mean, it's kind of like, I know it's kind of offensive. It's politically incorrect. And I think I like it even more because of that.
I could see that. Yeah.
It was kind of just a fun movie. And I don't know. I kind of like how was not afraid to throw jokes in there that I kind of felt like, I don't know, is this a little too touchy? But at the end of it, it actually makes a good conclusion where I'm like, yes, they shouldn't have jumped to conclusions because that kind of makes a bigger ass out of you and me, as they say. And I don't know, it was a fun ride. I mean, like I said, I wasn't expecting this movie to be so high on my list, but it was. And I don't know, maybe it's because I needed something fun and enjoyable.
Actually, you know what, Nate? The Hunt just barely missed my list. It's number 6 on my list.
Yeah, I'm guessing if we had kept it at the top 10, it would have shown somewhere on that ranking. But yeah. I decided to be honorable to it and give it a nice number 1 spot on my list.
Well, I'm glad to see it represented on here.
Which I already know what your number 1 is, Joe. Oh,
yeah. My number 1 is The Invisible Man by Leigh Whannell. I've now seen this movie 3 times. It's just a fantastic thriller. Leigh Whannell is a great genre filmmaker, as we've already seen from Upgrade. I was following him from his working relationship with James Wan, where they co-wrote Saw, and he was actually in Saw. And I've been watching him kind of grow as a director. I've been really excited to kind of see where he goes, separate from James Wan, and it just keeps getting better.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to say when I was reviewing this movie, Joe, in our top 5 is it's really kind of put a new kind of look and brand to the Blumhouse movie kind of like franchise. Like, I don't know, Blumhouse has been going down this track of like doing Insidious and The Conjuring and a bunch of other schlocky stuff. This is kind of taking it to another level. Still fun, but kind of doing something great with it.
Yeah, it's very tense. It goes in direction that you don't expect. The restaurant scene is already famous for what it does in that scene. I'm so glad I got to see this in theaters because that restaurant scene got one of the best audience reactions I've seen in a while. Like the whole theater just had this reaction at the same time, and it was fantastic. He weaponizes blank space on the camera, moving the camera here and just looks at a wall. And he makes just looking at nothing tense because you don't know, like, oh, is something going to pop up here? Is something not? Oh, did I miss something? Was that something there or not? Or is it just an empty shot? You don't know.
But even like once it's finally revealed that it's this guy in an invisible suit and he's not afraid to physically intervene when he needs to, that stuff is great to watch. Those action scenes, I'm like, holy cow. Like, the effects in this is fantastic.
Well, that's the thing is that Upgrade showed what he could do with action, especially extremely violent I don't want to say over the top, but violent visceral action. And the Invisible Man is great because for kind of a good chunk of it is that very tense paranoia movie. I like what they're doing with the whole gaslighting angle. Elizabeth Moss is fantastic. I like how the movie doesn't feel like it needs to. What's the word I'm looking for? Like movie star her up or glamorize her or anything like that. She's right. She spends most of the movie in just kind of baggy sweatshirts and sweatpants and that kind of stuff.
But I think what makes that so believable is like, and maybe Lynn Whannell has kind of talked about this, is he wants her paranoia to be your paranoia. Her discomfort is your discomfort. And
Exactly.
you feel that all the way through with her performance and what she's going through, how she feels my mind is being played with. And I don't know if someone's screwing around with me, but how she presents herself makes you feel that way too.
And then, of course, in the second half, you do get that crazy action. You get a lot of those kind of viscerally violent scenes. You get a lot of scenes where I much like with Tenet, I wanted to go back and see like how did they film that, because
Mhm,
you can
mhm,
tell it's not just completely CGI replacing everything. There's a scene where she's fighting him and grappling with him, and he's throwing her across the room, and I'm like, how on earth did they film this? Because you can tell that she isn't just being flung on wires. Like you can tell that she's like actually interacting with a real person, but there's nobody there. It's great.
And when you see the behind scenes and like what they did to pull that off, it's like, wow, that's all they did. What the heck?
Yeah, so it's an incredibly entertaining movie, very
Mhm,
tense movie. Just
mhm,
it's one of those movies where just a well put together package all the way around, including the acting and the
mhm.
story and the writing. It's very very well written, and you care about this character and you care about her struggle and just kind of what she's going through. So, and I really hope. I know that Blumhouse, well, not Blumhouse, but Universal in general has been trying to kickstart this. Figure out what to do with the Universal monsters. And I
Mhm.
really hope that we get a chance to get another Invisible Man movie, following up with this one, because it's just like I want to see where it goes from here.
Honestly, it'd be kind of cool to do the Invisible Woman and see what that would kind of
Yeah,
be.
that's
So
the logical next step. So here's here's
probably.
here's hoping. So
So
anyway,
should we, I guess, do like honorable mentions
yeah,
since
yeah, yeah. Let's jump into so Alex. Was there anything that you wanted to just mention briefly that didn't make your top 10 list or your top 5 list?
Yeah, so yeah, a couple of them actually. Um, one of them being Tower of God.
Mhm,
It's a series I had mentioned a couple times on previous podcasts. Um, it's a cool series. It's one of the first like big manhwa, which is like Korean manga that got adapted, produced by Crunchyroll. It's cool. I wasn't like super hyped about it as a lot of people were, but it was interesting. The animation was really rough, and I didn't really care for it all that much. The story is fine, twists and turns here and there, betrayal and whatnot, and it's cool. But it just for me, it didn't hit as much as the other series did. It was good. Watch it. It's cool. Whatever. Wasn't exactly for me. The other series I can mention is Heya Camp. One of my favorite series is Laid Back Camp, and this is kind of like a short mini series that was released last year. We've now gotten series 2 of Laid Back Camp, which I'm currently watching. Um, but this one was fun. It's each episode's like 4 minutes long. There's only so many of them, so it's just cool. It's fun. It's nice. Laid Back Camp is probably one of the comfiest animes that I've ever watched. And this one is it's just enjoyable, man. It's not a full series, so I didn't really want to put it on the list, but I'd say it's worth watching if you want, like, if you're not ready to spend a ton of time watching Laid Back Camp, the original series. This could be a good introduction to it. So yeah, those are my two.
all
Nice.
right. For me, I have a few, but I'll just briefly mention them. One of them was Love and Monsters. What I kind of like about this is that it keeps itself grounded. It's kind of fantastical with some of the monster sequences when Michael Rooker shows up as like the ranger who kind of like knows and does it all and is trying to train this wimpy kid to, tackle monsters. It's fun. I think what this does better than what Zombieland does is the fact that this kid is more relatable and likable. And not saying that Jesse Eisenberg's a bad actor, but this kid does a bit better. And I don't know, there's a good message at the end of it as well. I also liked the personalized history of David Copperfield. It kind of does something interesting that I've never seen done with Charles Dickens novels, and it's unconventional, but I kind of like what it's trying to do to get, a new generation interested in these literary classics. And yeah, that was it.
I'll run through my 6 through 10 quickly. Number 6 is The Hunt. Number 7 is The History of the Seattle Mariners, which is a little unorthodox to put on here. I know it's a 3.5 hour YouTube documentary series that's all been edited together. It's just looking at a spreadsheet the whole time, but trust me, you will get sucked into this thing. Fantastic. Guns Akimbo is number 8. Number 9 is Bill and Ted Face the Music, and number 10 is Possessor.
Oh yeah, I saw Possessor.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
That was weird. It's
very weird. Brandon Cronenberg. I just want to give a little shout out because we've reviewed the original on our Film Illiterates videos before. FX put out a Black Narcissus miniseries, which I counted on here.
I was gonna actually ask you, have you seen that?
I have, and I liked it. I actually quite enjoyed it. I mean, it's not as good as the movie, but it is kind of beat for beat the movie.
Yeah,
it's. I mean, if you want just kind of a retelling of the same story in modern filmmaking styles with modern filmmaking sensibilities, it's a good one. I quite enjoyed it. It's I was also happy that it didn't get as lurid as it could have, considering the subject matter with horny nuns, and it was FX. It was surprisingly tasteful. So,
it could have gone in a worse direction.
I know I'm in the minority in that. It's not getting great reviews on Letterboxd. I think it's got a 2.9 average, but I dug it. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of feel like one of the films, or actually wasn't a film, it was a series I watched this year that didn't get here because it's not really a movie, was The Queen's Gambit. But I ended up kind of backing that because it's a series, not a movie. So
nice. Alrighty, well, that will do it for our 2020 top 5 episode. We did it. We found 5 things to talk about from 2020.
Great. Now let's just hope we can go back to theaters or drive-ins. I mean, drive-ins are open, so let's do that. Oh, and Joe, I'll say I did get HBO Max, so I'm kind of looking forward to what Warner Brothers is going to be releasing. So, knock on wood.
Godzilla vs. Kong trailer dropped the day that we're recording this.
I did see it. I'm kind of excited for that.
You guys can go to your movie theaters and whatnot. I'll sit here and watch my anime. I'm happy to.
I'll send you some matcha tea to go with your little Snuggie. So,
ooh, I would be interested.
Hey, I've already gotten my jump start on the 10 movies they're going to be released in 2021. I saw Run, Hide, Fight.
Run, Hide, Fight? Oh, okay. Well, maybe we should try to review that down the road.
It's gonna be a long year for movies.
It will be. We'll see. I'm optimistic though.
Alrighty, well that will do it for the Film Illiterates podcast. You can find us on youtube.com/filmilliterates. Nate, where can people find you?
I mean, you can find me here at Film Illiterates. You can find me at Instagram at Nathan_Stone_films, as well as Letterboxd. I will be under Ivan Claysberg, just recording movies that I watch throughout the year. So check it out.
Alex?
If you'd like to keep up on what anime I'm watching, on what movies I'm watching, and what music I'm listening to, you can find me under Halfscrim, HALFSCRIM. I'm on Letterboxd, My Anime List, and Rate Your Music.
And you can find me on Twitter at Film Illiterates and on Letterboxd. Follow my movie watching habits, Film_Illiterate. If you want to see my what movies I've been watching lately, like my thoughts on The Thin Man, A Better Tomorrow, and Dick Shark.
Because he will be brave enough to watch those movies.
Oh my gosh. That'll do it for this episode of the Film Illiterates podcast, and which I already said. And keep watching movies and keep it easy.